Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nobmouse Show. Now this week what I want to do is answer a few questions that I sometimes get from people who've been watching some of the GameHammer videos. If you haven't seen GameHammer before, click here and it'll take you to the playlist for the GameHammer videos. Now recently I changed up how I do GameHammer. Instead of just doing a kind of let's play, I've gone instead for a full review type show, and as a result people are saying, how do you do that video? How have you made those videos? So I want to just this week do a walkthrough of how I make GameHammer videos and reviews. Now it all starts off with playing the game. Now what happens with that is I'll bring up a game. At the moment I've got an example here. It's Sailor Moon on the Super Nintendo, but what normally happens is I'll plug the console in, one of the various consoles or a computer. Sometimes I'll use an emulator instead. If I'm not getting a good signal out of the console or the computer, I'll just run it on an emulator. This, for example, is running on an emulator because the Nintendo at the moment is giving me a bit of trouble. So I'll take an emulator and I'll record the screen or record the input through something like iTV. Where is it there? This little thing here allows me to record directly both sound and video at pretty good quality, which helps an awful lot. Sometimes, however, if I'm doing screen recording for an emulator like this, I would use a screen recorder of QuickTime and then just transfer out the sound as I'm playing onto another computer and record there. Now that might seem a little bit daft. Why don't I just record the sound onto the same computer I'm recording from? And yeah, you could do that, but I actually keep a second computer here next to me where I can write notes while I'm playing the game, and that's very important because you've got the recording of the game, sure, but why are you going to remember everything you want to say and do in this review while you're playing it until after you've finished playing it and then write it all up? No, you're probably not. So what I actually do is, if something comes up in the game as I'm playing it that I really want to discuss in the review, I'll make a note on this other computer. So basically I'll be playing here, tap them, playing, and then turn and type the note and then go back to the game. And that's really useful because then I've got a set of notes of jokes or comments or whatever's going on with the game that I need to highlight. I've got all the information there. Now when I've finished playing the game, usually it's when I've finished the game, but if it's an annoying or frustrating game, it's whenever I give up and decide to just take the review up to that point because it's so frustrating. Then I'll save my notes on the computer here and load them up on here. That's quite easy to do, either transfer them across or use Dropbox. I tend to use Dropbox. So once I've got it there, I'll start writing the script. And the script can take a fair amount of time. Not as long as it takes to actually play the game and get all the notes for the review, but a fair amount of time. Now, the script is in proper script format. I'll set scenes, I'll have characters, I'll have lines of dialogue to put out in front of the camera. And then once all of that's done, I'll leave it overnight normally and have a read through the next day, make sure that it is saying everything that I wanted to and that the jokes are as good as they're going to get, that kind of thing. And then once that's done, print out a copy of the script and go to work. That takes several recording sessions, however. Most of the time it'll be a piece to camera like I'm doing here. I'll sit here at the desk and talk to the camera, doing the exposition, setting the scene, all of that kind of thing, and making certain comments. And then there'll be other bits, like there'll be usually an opening sketch for GameHammer, so I'll have written that out as a scene, and maybe that's outside, maybe that's in a certain thing that I have to put together, like a set or something like that. It doesn't usually happen as a set, but the Minor Willy one we actually used underneath the table in the dark so that it looked like I was cramped up in a enclosed space, that kind of thing. I've done stuff in the street before, things like that, but most of the time if I'm going to do a set or a scene, it'll be in front of green screen. And the Doom 2 review that I did a couple of weeks ago, that is a very good example of how I used a green screen for most of that. And what actually happens with that one is the green screen isn't set up all the time. I have a big piece of green screen fabric which I put up in the library and just hold in place with books. And using books actually works because you can't see them on the screen, but it gives me a tall, very flat surface to work on, which is useful. Then I'll pick out either a photograph or a graphic. Or usually I use Second Life because it's got a lot of facility for putting sets together, and then take a screen grab of that and that goes in as the background for the green screen. So it's all pretty simple like that. And then what actually happens is I read the script, do a piece to camera, read the script, do another piece to camera, and piece them all together in an editing suite. Now, the editing is what takes by far the longest out of every part of this, aside from playing the game, although sometimes actually I've played the game for less time than it's taken to actually put together a review in the edit. Now, the editing, it's multi-layered. You've got, in the case of just putting together a standard video, it'll be a scene of me talking to the camera, a scene of footage with audio that I've recorded over the top, and usually when I'm recording the audio I'll just sit here so that the sound levels are about the same. I'll just sit here and read through the script for the pieces that need to be overlaid onto the footage, and that works quite well. Then take the audio off that, put it onto the recording. If I've recorded sound from the game and I want to use that, then that'll get overlaid. I've got to time that right to make sure that all the sound effects work, but it's not too hard to do that. And then you end up with scenes with dialogue and sound effects layered on layered on layered, and that takes a lot of time. For example, what I'm showing you here is the editing for the Doom 2 review, and that took a long time. As you can see, I've got green screen where it's overlaid onto images, and then I've got sound effects and dialogue and background music all placed in, and it takes a long time to set that all up correctly, but it is worth it because the overall effect is very good, like this. Right, and so that's done it. As you can see, that you can't tell that all of that's layered and layered and layered and that. Each piece was recorded separately over a couple of days because it all just works together. So it is worth it. It takes us time, but it is worth doing. And of course, once you've done that, you've got to compile it out. I tend to compile in 1080 these days because it's decent high quality and it gives you a good overall finish on the finished product. So that's good. And then what tends to happen after that is I upload overnight because, my goodness, these things are huge file size. I think the Doom one was about 4 gigabytes and it was ridiculously large. But it is worth it for the finished product. However, because it's 4 gigabytes, that's going to take most of my bandwidth up for hours on end. So I upload overnight, and that way it doesn't affect using the internet or watching Netflix or anything like that, which is what I tend to do after these things are done. So yeah, that's how it's done. You start off playing, make some notes on what you want to say, then write the script out so that you say everything that you want, and make a few jokes as well if you can. Set up your scenes so that you've got good dialogue and characters if you're going to use that, or just do a full piece to camera. If you're doing it that way, just have your script and look down every now and again and read what you want to say, then look up the camera and say it. Or if you've got the space, I don't really have the space in here, but I do if you go down to the library, then you can have an auto cue just off camera and read from that. And if you're far enough back from the camera, like over here, then you won't be able to see that. I'm looking down slightly while I'm talking because that's how the auto cue will work, and then it'll look like you're talking straight to the camera. But I don't have that sort of ability in this room, so I tend not to do that. But if I'm down in the library and I'm doing a Nobmouse show episode, then the script that I've written will just be on auto cue and I'll just read straight to the camera. That's pretty good as well. Anyway, that's all about how you make videos. Like I said, the GameHammer stuff, that's how I do it, but you can use similar techniques for pretty much any kind of video that you want to do. Like I've just mentioned with the Nobmouse show, just writing like an essay and then reading it to camera on an auto cue. That's how I mostly do that. And it works out the same way. You end up with a lot to edit, but it's well worth it in the end. Anyway, that's really all I've got time for this, so we're going to stop now with this because I don't want to ramble on too much. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you did like this, and if you did, remember to click the like button, share this with your friends so that they can see how to make a good video too, and do subscribe for future videos because there will be more in the future. But until next time, I've been Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching the Nobmouse show, and I'll see you later.